Benton Road, you can say no. Limit the number of drive-throughs.
And I had to leave before the end of the day. That's what I should ask.
15 seconds.
John, how you been?
First guy was on.
John. Okay.
Second guy.
How you been?
Nine
Good?
was up. I haven't heard from the rest. We're going to discuss it. I just asked
We gotta go to breakfast.
but these
We have to
guys
go
are
to
pretty
breakfast.
good.
We got a lot to talk about.
And definitely
I did it today, yeah.
Good evening. I'd like to call our meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. I'll have the clerk please call the roll.
Supervisor Fountain?
Here.
Treasurer Horning?
Here.
Clerk Chopu? Here. Trustee Collier?
Here.
Trustee Germain?
Here.
Trustee Harper?
Here.
Trustee Petrucci?
Here.
Thank you. Item number 3 is approval of our meeting agenda.
So moved?
Support.
Motion by Treasurer Horning, second by Trustee Kalani. Is there any discussion on the agenda? Being none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Call to the public. Anybody that called to the public this evening? Being none, we'll move on to item number, I'm not seeing now that they're not numbered. I'm going to get really messed up, aren't I? Just the next item on our agenda is approval of our consent agenda.
So move.
Motion by Trustee Petrucci, second by Trustee Germain. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Being none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next is a presentation of our audit from 2018 and 2019. John, welcome.
Great.
Did you want James to put some of those, are you going to follow that along with that?
All right. Well, I would like to start out tonight by, first of all, thanking the board for having us, our firm, as your independent auditors. It's a real privilege to work for Hartland Township and work with all the staff here. With that, too, I can't say enough about all the help that we get, starting out with the manager, James. He does a great job, always explaining the issues and what's going on. And both the treasurer, Kathy Horning, and Larry in the clerk's office for all their help. It's very important during the audit to be able to get the audit done timely and within budget. So with that said, I would, first of all, probably the most important comment tonight is to say to the board that the good news is we're issuing an unmodified audit opinion, which is the highest level of opinion that the independent auditor can issue. The importance of this opinion is that the state of Michigan, right off the bat, they look at it for their state share revenues, determining whether the township should be continually getting those in the future, and also should the township have to go out for any bonding in the near future. That's very important because they want to make sure that the township is doing well and is financially strong. So, we'll start out with that. And then with that, I wanted to mention that as part of our audit, we do obviously a lot of different testing and work, on the records. And one area that I'd have to say that Hartland does a phenomenal job on is they have great internal controls, which means what happens is when you do a transaction, whether it's writing a check or taking in a receipt or whatever item you're processing, that you have the controls in place to make sure that everything is done properly and the proper checks and balances are done. So it's a very good design system. And then when we come in to do the audit, we test it. And again, that's very important what those results are. And again, we found that the township does a great job with following their internal controls, because sometimes we'll get to a unit and they have these internal controls written, but we don't see that they're followed through. So that's very important for the financial situation of the township. So I wanted to mention that. I'd like to then go on to just talking a little bit about the financial situation during the year. Obviously, part of this is being highlighted in the audit report, part of the MD&A, or the management discussion and analysis part of the audit report. But I just want to make some statements just about the whole township as a whole. So the good news is, because of staying within budget and managing your funds very well, you were actually able to increase your fund balance slightly by 5%, but at the same time, making improvements within the township of over $400,000 for various parks, which there was 2 parks involved, sidewalks for the township, also contributions to the Hero Center, also Senior Center, and other different areas of the township. So that is very important. Again, if I was a resident of Hartland, that to know that the money's going back into different areas that I could, use as a resident. Along with that, I also wanted to mention, and you see it in this first graph here, so the general fund revenues are almost $2.6 million. And as you can see, the yellow portion is state shared. So many times, as a resident, it's hard to understand totally that, our taxes are so much and it's a large part of the money's coming in. Really, the truth of the matter is that most of the tax money goes to the schools. There's a portion that the township gets, and the township's portion of the revenues in the general fund that are taxes was only 28%. 50% of the revenues come from state shared. So what are state shared revenues? They're revenues that come back from the state of Michigan, but they're from businesses in the area for sales tax and different taxes, income taxes for residents in the area. So these taxes are redistributed back to the units. So again, a large portion comes from state shared revenues, not from taxes, so I want to mention that. Also, an important item that we look at as auditors, again, back to the financial condition of the township, is that the township's cash balances increased from $16 million to over $19 million. And what's very important, again, is how these funds are being invested in different types of areas that are not risky and can get the maximum return in those areas. And the treasurer does an excellent job, Kathy Horning, doing that, being conservative. It's kind of an old term that I use. It's kind of like how you would invest grandma's money to make sure the money will always be there, but also get some return so that it'll help with bonds, paying bonds in the future and different things like that. So again, I wanted to mention the importance of that. With that too, the fire fund just about broke even, which is what you would expect. You have a millage there, you collect the millage, and then you pay for all the expenses, for the fire authority, and you're doing what you should be doing. It's about a break even, so all the monies go for expenses for the fire, which is good. And then with that, I also wanted to mention, going back to the staffs, when we do the audit, it's very important, the job of the accountant, and Susan Dryden-Hogan does a great job. And the one thing that's important with that is that when we're doing the audit, there's very few adjustments. So when the board gets their financial statements, they know that these are going to be accurate. And why I can say that is when we do the audit, we don't have anything that we can suggest that you should be doing different that way. So I did want to mention that Susan does a great job. We have very few adjustments, and that does help us keep our audit fee where it is and not have any additional charges. And again, as I've already said, get the audit done timely and within budget. So, and I'll go to opening up any questions that you might have.
Members from the board, anybody have any questions?
Just if I may, for the benefit of those watching, when you say our balance of funds is $19 million, that's across all funds.
That's
not just the
correct.
general fund. We have
Yes.
water, sewer, special assessment funds, so it's
Exactly.
scattered throughout those. Yeah.
Yes. And the general fund is about $2.8 million, and that balance is it's a good balance to have, because your annual expenditures are close to $2 million a year. So you're able to meet those expenditures of the next year. And the importance of having that kind of a balance is just like what the graph is showing. State share revenues are half of your revenues in a year. should there be a change on the state level on how those will be distributed, that would impact you, and you would have time to react to that, which is what you want to do. Plus, just like you did this year, you spent money on the parks and these different areas that go back in the township, you have the funds available to do that.
John, how long have you been our auditors?
It's hard to say. I would say, 15 years or so.
15 years, so yeah. I'm curious, from the time you started to where we are today, can you kind of give a background of how we've improved over the years in terms of our financial reporting?
Yeah, there definitely has been, and again, from the very beginning, you guys, were very good. A couple of things I think I can say right, clearly is, first of all, back to what I said with the internal controls. So, again, it was James, I think, and Susan too, working on this mapping. This mapping was really good. I have to tell you, I did use it for other units. I tried to encourage them to map, like you guys did. That is one thing that you've done over the more recent years that was very important, because, one thing I will say is your audit fee has probably stayed the same for a number of years because of things like that, where when we come in, we can test, and we know that, and we have good results. We know those everything, the records are accurate. So I would say, probably that. And I really think that the board has done a really good job stabilizing, planning, and also, again, with James's input, for planning for expenditures and keeping this healthy fund balance. If you go back to 2012, your fund balance was, down to about 1.2 million. And again, it's still not a bad fund balance, but you've been able to add to that, which is a good thing, because again, when the opportunities come up with a township that's growing like Hartland, you're going to have the funds available. If you want to do another park, or if you want to do something else, you can do that. Where I have units that they can't do that. They don't have the reserves to make those kinds of improvements, which is what you guys have been doing. I think that's probably the two main things that I've seen in the more recent years.
I'd like to make a motion to accept this year's audit.
I'll support that.
Motion by Treasurer Horning, second by Trustee Kalani. Is there any other questions or comments?
I just want to say good job to the staff, and James, and Susan in particular, all their hard work on putting it together, and the other departments, treasurer, and clerk. So.
And James, in our earlier discussion, you had mentioned about, our goals as a board, how much we want to put away for capital improvements and such. And we set a goal of 22%. And you mentioned we either met or surpassed that amount.
Just went over it. And that difference that he mentioned between your revenue of $2.5 million versus $2 million in expenses, that difference is what gets put into capital projects directly into community assets that'll be there, not into staff or other things.
So that's like sidewalks?
Sidewalks,
roads.
parks, roads, chloriding.
Okay. Very good. If there's nothing else, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you,
Thank you
John.
very much.
Have a
Thank
nice
you, John.
evening.
Okay.
Item number 5 is an amendment to the Hartland Town Square PD amendment. I believe this is the 8th amendment to that. And there's going to be some additional signage. There's going to be some tree removal. There's going to be some additional drive-through opportunities at the request of Ramco. And there's a couple other elements. Joe, did you have any comments on that from the Planning Commission?
No, not many. Part of it was looking at that plan development and looking at some of the limitations that it had, and improving on the ability of that development to proceed. And one of them, I think, there was a limitation on number of drive-throughs, which no one really could find a whole lot of data as to the rationale for that. But anyway, that was one of the issues that came up during the planning commission meeting.
And it looks like some replacement of some of the metal halide sodium bulbs with less
LED.
LED probably, yep. Anybody have any questions
These were all
on this?
requests made by the developer.
Yep. And again, this is, looks like the 8th amendment to the PD agreement, which was started in 2008.
Well, I'll move to approve the 8th Amendment to the Plan Development Agreement and Pattern Book outlined in the staff memorandum.
I'll support it.
Motion by trustee Kalani, second by trustee Petrucci. Is there any other discussion? Being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item number 6 is a resolution for Mill Point revised assessment roll. The project came in under budget, so Treasurer Horning is going to revise the assessment roll.
Yeah, it turned out that it's $1,175 per household, which takes the principal payment annually from $550 down to $404, and they'll also save about $223 over the life of the loan in interest. So it's really a great, it really was really
Per household.
nice, per household,
I think, yes.
And that would take effect when?
this December bill.
This December bill. Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on that? Being none, I'll have the clerk please call the roll.
Trustee Harper?
Yes.
Trustee Germain?
Yes.
Trustee Petrucci?
Yes.
Supervisor Fountain?
Yes.
Trustee Collier?
Yes.
Clerk Schofield, yes. Trustee Treasurer Horning?
Yes.
I do have one item that's related to this. So if someone prepaid their assessment,
There's
how would
two
that,
people.
how would that be handled?
They will get a check for the $1,175, and there's 2 of those.
Thank you. And item number, after pending business, is board reports. Today we start with trustee Petrucci.
I don't have any reports tonight.
Clerk Schofu,
No report.
Treasurer Horning,
Nothing this evening.
trustee Kalani,
I have nothing.
trustee Germain.
I have something. A month from now in Frankenmuth, there's the MTA Fall Workshop, and I would like to request to be able to go on October 17th. It's a full-day event for training for trustees.
And we do have dollars in our budget for that, correct?
Yeah, I may have to double check because we are using Dr. Bender this year, but we should be able to fit that in. But yeah,
Did you get that information to James? So
I'm aware of the,
Yeah.
for the fee or
usual
whatever?
fall workshop.
Okay.
I have no objection. I don't think anybody else.
Anybody have any other comments on that? Thanks for attending, Matt. And trustee Harper?
No report.
And I have no report this evening. We'll take a brief recess and we'll go into our strategic plans status and our manager's report.
Hey, James, come here for a minute.
If you want to sign that.
Under this new program now, I get into the, item 7 or whatever it is.
So you guys can stay.
How do I get back?
You're more than welcome to stay. We're going to move over to that room,
Oh, okay. Well,
or you can go home and take a boat ride.
The official meeting is over.
because you're looking at through.
I would
The official meeting's over.
take the boat ride.
Through the Internet Explorer instead of through Adobe Reader. So with Adobe Reader, you can see the table of contents on the left side.
Yeah, so how do I get into that instead of the?
Come back in the winter when it's snowing.
Which you did. In fact, if you go into your folders.
Okay.
it's,
On here?
It's easy schmeezy.
Folder right there, yeah. There will be a download folder. If you-
Yeah,
if you-
okay.
And in downloads will be that packet.